Thank you for subscribing to our channel. Today is Monday, October 19, 2020. CNN report. Hummer fans hope new electric model redeems the divisive brand they love. David Oberer is used to being stared at when he drives his Hummer H1. You either gets a thumbs up, or flipped off, Oberer told CNN Business. People approach him at gas stations, he said. Some want to see the Hummer's engine, or its interior. Others hate him, he says, and want to know how he could drive such a vehicle. As Oberer sees it, his family owes everything to his diesel-powered Hummer. The business, our livelihood, the food we put on the table, said Oberer, who owns a business selling Hummer parts in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
BBC report. China-Taiwan tensions erupt over diplomats' fight in Fiji. Taiwan alleges two Chinese embassy officials crashed an event to celebrate their National Day earlier this month, claims Beijing disputes. Both sides say their officials were injured in the fight, and have asked Fiji police to investigate. China regards Taiwan as a breakaway province, but Taiwan's leaders argue it is a sovereign state. Relations between the two are frayed, and there is the constant threat of a violent flare-up that could drag in the U.S., an ally of Taiwan. The latest incident is said to have occurred on 8 October as Taiwan's trade office in Fiji, its de facto embassy, held a reception for some 100 distinguished guests in the luxurious Grand Pacific Hotel in the Fijian capital Suva.
CNN report. Soybean question at debate spotlights Senate challenge facing Ernst in Iowa. Sen. Joni Ernst was already facing a tough re-election fight in Iowa, and then came the soybean question. At a televised debate late last week, when asked to state the price of soybeans in Iowa, she initially delivered a long response about trade policy, but didn't answer the question. A veteran Iowa news anchor pressed her, saying, "You grew up on a farm, you should know this." Ernst hesitated another moment before finally responding, "Probably about $5.50. Well, you're a couple dollars off, I think, because it's $10.05.
Deutsche Welle report. Trump to remove Sudan from U.S. terror blacklist. Sudan will be removed from a U.S. blacklist of countries accused of sponsoring terrorism, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday. He said that the African country's year-old transitional government had agreed to pay a $335 million €285 million package to American victims of attacks and their relatives. At long last, justice for the American people and big step for Sudan, Trump posted on Twitter. Once deposited, I will lift Sudan from the state sponsors of terrorism list, he added. Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok replied to Trump, thanking him for the move.
Fox report. New British rape prosecution guidelines advise to ignore sexts, explicit images. British prosecutors have been advised to disregard sexts and explicit images sent between people when handling rape cases. The new guidance is just one of several suggestions that the Crown Prosecution Service has made as it attempts to address record low rape convictions in England and Wales, the BBC reported. The guidelines, posted on the CPS website, argue that prosecutors need to tackle rape myths and stereotypes in a time when hookup, dating sites and internet behavior has changed the ways in which people date and socialize.
Fox report. UN arms embargo against Iran expires. What's next? Despite staunch opposition from the United States, a long-standing UN arms embargo has lapsed, leaving Tehran open to deadly weapons purchases. Celebrations erupted through the upper echelons of Tehran's ruling class this weekend, as a 13-year arms embargo against the religious regime expired on Sunday, marking a momentous day for the government and a concerning one for its adversaries and observers of regional stability. So what happens now? Under the embargo, which came into effect in 2007, the export of certain conventional arms to Iran, and the procurement of any arms or related materiel from Iran, was cemented as a violation of the UN Security Council resolution and remain subject to sanctions.
Al Jazeera report. NASA's OsirisRex poised to reach out and touch an asteroid. Imagine having to parallel park a 15-passenger van in a narrow parking spot surrounded by 2-story boulders. Then imagine doing it on an asteroid hurtling through outer space at speeds of more than 62 700 miles per hour, 101,000 km per hour. On Tuesday, a mission led by U.S. space agency NASA and a team of researchers from the University of Arizona in the United States will do just that, sending commands to a small spacecraft more than 200 million miles, 321,9 million kilometers away, and guiding OsirisRex to vacuum up bits of an asteroid named Bennu and bring them back to Earth.
CNN report. Tsunami warning issued after earthquake near Alaska. A tsunami warning was issued Monday after a preliminary magnitude 7.5 earthquake struck near Sand Point, Alaska. The warning was for the Alaska Peninsula and South Alaska, according to the National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska. "We are still waiting for any wave that may have been generated," Scott Langley with the National Tsunami Warning Center said. Langley said the area subject to the warning is pretty remote. Officials should know soon whether a tsunami was generated, he said. For other U.S. and Canadian Pacific coasts in North America, the level of tsunami danger is being evaluated. Further information will be provided in supplementary messages.
Al Jazeera report. Down to the wire. Pelosi, Mnuchin talk pre-election stimulus deal. United States House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin continued to narrow their differences in a 53-minute telephone conversation on Monday about a fresh coronavirus relief aid package, Pelosi's spokesman wrote on Twitter. Pelosi hopes that by the end of Tuesday there will be clarity on whether a coronavirus stimulus bill can be passed before the November 3 elections, her spokesman, Drew Hamill, wrote. He said Pelosi and Mnuchin agreed to talk again on Tuesday, and staff working on the matter will continue around the clock.
BBC report. End SARS protests. Amnesty warns of escalating attacks. Armed thugs had attacked protesters at the headquarters of the central bank in the capital, Abuja, it said. For their part, police accused people, posing as protesters of looting weapons and torching police buildings in southern Edo State. Prisoners were also reported to have escaped from a jail in the state. The protests started about 2 weeks ago to demand an end to police brutality, with mainly young people using the social media hashtag #EndSARS to rally people to demand the closure of the notorious Special Anti-Robbery Squad (SARS).
Deutsche Welle report. U.S. Supreme Court to review Trump's Remain in Mexico policy. The U.S. Supreme Court said Monday it would look into the legality of President Donald Trump's tough immigration policy that has kept tens of thousands of asylum seekers in Mexico, rather than enter the U.S. while their claims were processed. Trump's Migrant Protection Protocols policy, known informally as Remain in Mexico, was a main pillar of the U.S. response to a surge of asylum-seeking families at the U.S.-Mexico border. The case was brought to the Supreme Court due to a Trump administration appeal against lower court rulings over the administration's hardline stance against immigration.
Al Jazeera report. As violence flares in South Afghanistan, key questions answered. Afghanistan has seen an uptick in violence over the past week, with the Taliban launching attacks in several provinces even as negotiators from the armed group and the Afghan government are still in Qatar's capital for talks aimed at bringing peace to the country. A major Taliban assault last week on Lashkar-Gah, capital of the southern Helmand province, sparked days of intense fighting and prompted the United States to launch air attacks in support of its allied government forces. Tens of thousands of people are estimated to have since fled their homes to escape the violence, which has stretched hospitals in Lashkar-Gah to capacity.
Fox report. Europe combats second coronavirus wave with new lockdowns, curfews and other measures. Italy once again ramped up coronavirus restrictions in a bid to avoid a new nationwide lockdown, as parts of the United Kingdom have already reinstated lockdowns similar to those seen in March, and Poland converted a major stadium into a field hospital amid a massive surge in infections. As more than 40 million infections have been recorded worldwide, reopened European countries brace for the second wave of COVID-19 cases. What once was the epicenter of the pandemic after the virus broke out from China is now considering hunkering down a second time.
CNN report. Why is Donald Trump talking so much about losing? In recent days, President Donald Trump has started to openly speculate about what he might do if he loses in 15 days to former Vice President Joe Biden. Running against the worst candidate in the history of presidential politics puts pressure on me, Trump told a crowd in Georgia late last week. Could you imagine if I lose? My whole life. What am I going to do? I'm going to say, I lost to the worst candidate in the history of politics. I'm not going to feel so good. Maybe I'll have to leave the country. I don't know.
Fox report. Paris teacher beheading. Police investigating dozens who allegedly issued messages of support for suspect. France's interior minister said Monday that police are investigating dozens of people who allegedly issued messages of support for the attacker after the beheading of a history teacher near Paris. Gérald Darmanin said on French Radio Europe 1 that at least 80 cases of hate speech have been reported since Friday's attack. Samuel Paty was beheaded in Conflans, Saint-Honorat, northwest of Paris, by an 18-year-old Moscow-born Chechen refugee, who was later shot dead by police. Police officials said Paty had discussed caricatures of Islam's Prophet Muhammad with his class, leading to threats.
BBC report. Indigenous Colombians march on Bogota over killings. They plan to congregate at the presidential palace on Monday to demand a meeting with President Ivan Duque. The protesters accuse the government of ignoring a rise in murders of indigenous leaders. They also demand to be consulted on major development projects. More than 6,000 indigenous Colombians arrived in Bogota on Sunday after traveling more than 600 kilometers (375 miles) first from the Cauca region that is their home to Cali, where they had hoped to meet President Duque last week. When that meeting did not materialize on 12 October, they carried on to Bogota.
Deutsche Welle report. U.S. charges 6 Russian military intelligence officers over cyberattacks. A total of 6 Russian officers, who allegedly worked for a military intelligence agency, have been charged over attacks on a broad range of political, financial and athletic targets, according to a U.S. Justice Department indictment released on Monday. The hackers, who are all current or former members of the Russian Main Intelligence Directorate GRU, are accused of carrying out attacks on Ukraine's power grid, targeting the 2017 French elections and the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, according to the Justice Department.
Thank you for watching 5 p.m. recap. To be notified, you can subscribe our channel and activate the bell.